Mrs. Winters, you need to see something before you leave. The nurse's hand gripped my wrist as I reached for the elevator button, her face drained of color in the harsh hospital lighting. I don't need to see anything, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. I'm done, Dad. It's about your husband and Dr. Ashford, she whispered, glancing down the corridor. About the accident. Mrs. Winters, I don't think it was an accident at all. I turned to face her fully. What are you talking about? Security footage. From that night. From earlier that day. Her eyes locked with mine. Dr. Ashford's car, someone tampered with it. And I think I know why. Name is Rachel Winters, and I'm 34 years old. What happened in that hospital corridor 3 weeks ago changed everything. Not just for me, but for my husband Blake, his boss and lover Dr. Vanessa Ashford, and his mother Dorothy, who'd spent 6 years treating me like the family disappointment. Here's what none of them knew: while they were planning my humiliation, I was building an empire. While my husband was choosing another woman over me, I was becoming a millionaire. And when that nurse stopped me at 11:47 p.m. on that Friday night, I had to make a choice: walk away and let karma handle them, or turn back and ensure justice happened. Welcome to Revenge with Alice. To every single one of you watching right now, thank you. Whether you're a long-time subscriber or you just stumbled across this story, I'm grateful you're here. Your support, your comments, your shares, they mean everything. Before we begin, I want to say a quick prayer for all of you, my beloved subscribers and viewers. Dear Lord, I pray for everyone watching this today. Bless them with strength when life gets hard. Give them wisdom to see their worth even when others try to diminish it. Protect their hearts, their homes, and their dreams. May they find peace in their storms and courage in their doubts. And Lord, when they face betrayal or hardship, remind them that endings are often just new beginnings in disguise. Amen. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. 6 years ago, when I thought I'd found my forever, the medical conference in Chicago was the last place I expected to meet my future husband. I was 28, working as a pharmaceutical sales rep for a small regional company called MedTech Solutions. I'd been with them for 2 years, grinding through 60-hour weeks, building relationships with doctors across 3 states, learning everything I could about cardiac medications. Blake Brennan walked up to my booth during the networking hour, white coat crisp, stethoscope casually draped around his neck like an accessory. He was a second-year cardiology resident with the kind of confidence that came from never having been told no. Tell me something, he said, picking up one of our drug samples. Why should I prescribe this over the competition? Most sales reps would have launched into their memorized pitch. Instead, I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You shouldn't." Not yet. We're still in phase 3 trials, and honestly, the competition has better data on long-term outcomes. He laughed. Actually laughed. You're the worst salesperson I've ever met. I'm the most honest one, I replied. But if you want to know about our upcoming drug that actually will revolutionize treatment protocols, let me buy you a coffee. 3 hours later, we were still talking. Not about drugs or medicine, but about everything: his dreams of becoming chief of cardiology, my ambitions to move beyond sales into development, his complicated relationship with his wealthy Connecticut family, my middle-class upbringing in Ohio. You're different, he said as we stood outside the conference center, Chicago wind whipping around us. Most people I meet, they're impressed by the coat, the degree, the family name. You don't seem to care about any of that. Should I? I asked. No. He smiled, and it was genuine, warm. That's exactly why I like you. 3 months of weekend flights between Chicago and Connecticut followed. 6 months after that, he proposed at the same conference center where we'd met, on one knee in front of my booth while my colleagues applauded. His mother's face at our rehearsal dinner should have been my first warning. Dorothy Brennan stood at the head table, champagne flute raised, her smile razor-sharp. A toast to my son Blake and his bride Rachel. Blake, darling, you've always had such an adventurous spirit. Marrying a salesgirl, how industrious. The room went quiet. I felt heat creeping at my neck, but Blake squeezed my hand under the table. Mom, Rachel's not just a sales rep, she's brilliant at what she does. She understands medicine better than half the residents at my hospital. Dorothy's smile never wavered. Of course, dear. I'm sure she's very competent. That night, lying in our hotel room, Blake held me close. Don't let her get to you. My mother thinks anyone without a trust fund is beneath us. She'll come around when she sees how happy we are. I wanted so badly to believe him. The first 18 months of marriage were everything I'd hoped for. We bought a modest townhouse in Hartford, modest by his family's standards, a palace by mine. I continued building my career at MedTech Solutions, earning promotions through sheer persistence. Blake finished his residency and began looking for the right practice to join. Then he met Dr. Vanessa Ashford. She's offering me exactly what I've been looking for, Blake said one evening over dinner, his eyes bright with excitement. A position at her cardiology practice. Rachel, she's brilliant. She's published in every major journal. She has connections at Mercy General, Yale, even the Mayo Clinic. Working with her could fast-track me to chief of cardiology. That sounds great, I said, meaning it. When do you start? 2 weeks. There's just one thing. He hesitated. The position requires a lot of travel initially. Medical conferences, building relationships with referring physicians. I might be gone more than usual. We'll make it work, and we did, at first. But gone more than usual turned into gone most weekends. Missed dinners became the norm. Our conversations shifted from hours of connection to quick texts and brief phone calls. How was your day? I'd ask when he finally came home at 10 p.m. on a Thursday, exhausting. Vanessa had me sit in on 3 complex cases, then we had to review patient charts until 9. Want to talk about it? Not really. I'm just going to shower and crash. The shower became a ritual. Every time he came home, straight to the bathroom, washing away the day before I could get close enough to smell another woman's perfume. I told myself I was being paranoid. Insecure. He was building his career. I needed to be supportive. Then came the hospital fundraiser. I'd been stuck in traffic for an hour, missing the cocktail reception entirely. When I finally arrived at the Grand Harbor Hotel, the fundraiser was in full swing. I walked through the glittering ballroom, searching for Blake among the crowd of doctors, donors, and board members. I found him on the terrace. The French doors were open, letting in the cool evening air. Through the gauzy curtains, I saw them. Blake's hand resting on the small of Vanessa's back, exactly where he used to touch me when we slow danced. His mouth was close to her ear, whispering something that made her eyes flutter closed. Then she turned her head, their lips met to it lasted maybe 5 seconds. Brief. But unmistakable. My champagne glass trembled in my hand, the crystal threatening to shatter. I should have screamed. Should have stormed out there and confronted them both. But I stood frozen, watching as they separated. Vanessa smoothed her black dress. Blake checked his phone. And they walked back inside like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just destroyed 6 years of promises. I spent the rest of the evening observing them. The way she touched his arm when speaking to donors. The way he laughed at her jokes just a beat too long. The way they moved together like a couple who'd been practicing their choreography. Rachel. Blake spotted me near the bar. There you are. I was starting to worry. Traffic, I managed. Come meet the hospital board members. This is my wife, Rachel, he said to a group of suited men and women. She works in pharmaceutical sales, not she's brilliant. Not she understands medicine. Just the job title, said with the same dismissive tone his mother used. One of the board members, an older woman in pearls, smiled politely. How nice. Blake, Dr. Ashford was just telling us about the new cardiac wing proposal. Your partnership with her practice is quite impressive. Partnership. The word hung in the air between us. Rachel, we should talk about that, Blake said as we drove home that night. My hands gripped the steering wheel. About your partnership? Or about the fact that you kissed Vanessa Ashford on that terrace? Silence then. You saw that. I saw that, Rachel. It didn't mean anything. She's going through her second divorce. She was emotional, vulnerable. I was trying to comfort her and it just happened. Too much wine, too much stress. Pulled into our driveway and put the car in park, finally turning to look at him. Does she know it didn't mean anything? Of course she does. Rachel, you're my wife. I love you. Vanessa is my colleague, my mentor. That's all. Then why did you kiss her back? I didn't. Not really. It was barely a second before I pulled away. Lies taste different when you're desperately wanting them to be true. They're bitter, but you swallow them anyway because the alternative is too painful. Don't let this happen again, I said quietly to it won't. I promise. Another lie. But I believed it because I needed to. 8 months after that fundraiser, Dr. James Holloway, the lead researcher at MedTech Solutions, asked me to have coffee at a diner an hour outside Hartford. He was 67, ready to retire, and had something he wanted to discuss privately. Rachel, I've been watching you for the past 4 years, he said, sliding a folder across the table. You're wasted in sales. You understand the science. You understand the market. You care about patient outcomes, not just commissions. Thank you, but my wife Margaret and I started a small biotech company 15 years ago, he continued. We've developed a revolutionary drug delivery system. Patches that can administer cardiac medication in controlled doses over extended periods. The FDA is interested. Investors are interested. But we're researchers, not business people. We need someone who can scale this company, someone who understands both worlds. He opened the folder. Inside were patents, clinical trial results, financial projections. I'm selling a 40% stake in Holloway Biosystems. $75,000. That gives you a seat on the board and control over business operations. My mind raced. Dr. Holloway, I don't have that kind of money. Don't you? I thought about the secret savings account I'd opened after seeing Blake kiss Vanessa. Money I'd been squirreling away from bonuses and commissions, keeping separate from our joint accounts. Money Blake didn't know existed. I have $43,000. Then take a loan for the rest. Rachel, this could change your life. But I need an answer by Monday. I went home that night and found Blake in his study, reviewing patient charts. Can we talk? Busy, babe. Vanessa needs these reviewed by tomorrow. It's important. So is this. He didn't even look up. I stood there for a full minute, waiting for him to prioritize me. He never did. The next morning, I called Dr. Holloway. I'm in. Over the next 18 months, I lived 2 completely separate lives. By day, I was Rachel Brennan, pharmaceutical sales rep, dutiful wife who attended medical society dinners and smiled through her husband's increasingly obvious affair with Vanessa. By night and on weekends, I worked on transforming Holloway Biosystems from a garage operation into something real. Dr. Holloway and Margaret became more than mentors. They became the family I'd lost when I married into the Brennans. "You're exhausted," Margaret said one Saturday as we reviewed FDA submission documents in their home office. "When's the last time you slept a full night? Sleep is for people without dreams," I joked. "Rachel." She took off her reading glasses. "Is everything okay at home?" I could have lied. Should have lied. But something about Margaret's gentle concern broke through my careful defenses. "My husband is having an affair with his boss. His mother thinks I'm beneath them. And I'm pretending none of it matters while building this company because I need to know I can survive when it all falls apart." Margaret pulled me into a hug. "Then let's make sure you don't just survive, dear. Let's make sure you thrive." 6 months after I invested in Holloway Biosystems, we received preliminary approval from the FDA for our drug delivery system. It was a milestone that should have been celebrated with champagne and fanfare. Instead, I was getting dressed for Dorothy Brennan's 70th birthday party at the family estate. "You look nice," Blake said, adjusting his tie in our bedroom mirror. He'd barely looked at me in 3 months, thanks. I smoothed down the navy dress I'd spent weeks finding. Something elegant, sophisticated, something that might finally earn Dorothy's approval. The Brennan estate was transformed into something from a luxury magazine. White lights threaded through massive oak trees, champagne fountains sparkled on marble tables, a string quartet played near the rose garden. 200 guests milled about in designer clothes, discussing stock portfolios and vacation homes in the Hamptons. I felt like an imposter in my department store dress. "Rachel." Dorothy materialized beside me near the dessert table, her smile cold and precise. "How lovely you could make it. Blake tells me you're still with that little pharmaceutical company." "MedTech Solutions, yes." "Haven't moved up at all, have you?" She sipped her champagne, the question wrapped in false concern. "Still in sales after all these years. Actually, I'm being considered for a regional manager position." "How quaint." The word dripped with condescension. "Blake mentioned that Dr. Ashford has offered him a full partnership in her practice." "Full partnership, Rachel. At 32. Do you understand what that means?" I understood perfectly. It meant he was choosing her. "Of course, partnerships require significant investment," Dorothy continued, watching my face carefully. "I've already spoken with our family lawyer about liquidating some of Blake's trust fund. We can't have financial constraints holding him back from his potential." His trust fund. The money that was legally his but his mother controlled with an iron grip. Money I'd never touched, never asked about, never needed because I'd always earned my own way. "I'm sure Blake will make the right decision," I managed. "I'm sure he will." Dorothy's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Dr. Ashford is a remarkable woman. So accomplished, so sophisticated. The kind of partner who elevates rather than anchors." She walked away, leaving the word anchors hanging in the air like poison. I spent the rest of that party watching Blake and Vanessa work the room together. She wore a crimson dress that probably cost more than my car payment, her silver-streaked black hair styled in an elegant updo. Blake stood beside her, introducing her to his father's business associates, his mother's society friends. They looked like a power couple. And I looked like the hired help who'd mistakenly wandered into the main house. "Rachel." Blake's cousin Jennifer grabbed my arm. Come take a photo with us. I followed her to where the family was gathering for the official birthday portrait. Dorothy sat in the center, Blake's father beside her. Blake stood behind his mother's chair, his hand resting on her shoulder. I moved to stand next to him. Actually, Dorothy said sweetly, this is just immediate family. Rachel, dear, would you mind taking the photo for us? The photographer was standing right there. But I took the camera anyway, because making a scene would only prove I didn't belong. I snapped the photo of Blake's perfect family. Without me in it. That night, lying in bed beside my husband, I made a decision. Not to leave, not yet. But to stop pretending his lies didn't hurt. To stop waiting for crumbs of affection. And to pour everything I had into Holloway Biosystems, building something that would be mine alone. Over the next 12 months, Holloway Biosystems went from promising startup to FDA-approved reality. Our drug delivery patches passed every trial, exceeded every expectation. Dr. Holloway and Margaret taught me about intellectual property, regulatory frameworks, venture capital negotiations. I taught them about market positioning, strategic partnerships, scaling operations. We were a team in a way Blake and I had never been. We got the approval. Dr. Holloway called me on a Tuesday afternoon. FDA just sent the paperwork. We're official. I was sitting in a parking lot between sales calls, and I started crying. Not delicate tears, but huge, gasping sobs of relief and joy. Rachel? Are you okay? I'm perfect, I laughed through the tears. We did it. We actually did it. No, dear. You did it. Margaret and I created the science, but you made it real. That evening, I came home to an empty house. Blake was at a medical conference with Vanessa in Boston. I opened a bottle of wine, sat on our couch, and allowed myself to feel the full weight of my accomplishment. I'd built something meaningful. Something that would help patients. Something no one could take from me. 3 months later, Mercer Pharmaceuticals reached out. Ms. Winters, I'm calling on behalf of Mercer's acquisitions team, the voice on the phone said. We've been following Holloway Biosystems' progress with great interest. We'd like to discuss a potential acquisition. I'm listening. The initial offer was $45 million. After 2 months of negotiations, we settled on $47 million. My 40% stake would net me $18.8 million. I sat in my car after signing the preliminary agreement, staring at the number on the contract. $18,800,000. More money than Dorothy Brennan had probably spent on jewelry in her lifetime. Blake knew nothing about any of it. He was too busy with Vanessa to notice that his wife had become a millionaire. Too wrapped up in his partnership negotiations to see that I'd built something far more substantial than his bought and paid for position. I drove home that day and walked through our townhouse with new eyes. This place that had felt like a prison for the past 2 years suddenly felt temporary. Disposable. I started making plans. 3 weeks ago, everything exploded. I'd told Blake I was traveling to Florida for a pharmaceutical conference. Instead, I was in Manhattan finalizing the Mercer deal. The paperwork was signed Thursday afternoon. I was supposed to stay until Saturday, celebrating with the Holloways and our legal team. But something made me come home early. Intuition. Suspicion. Maybe just exhaustion from living a double life for so long. I drove home Friday evening, arriving at our townhouse around 9 p.m. Blake's car was in the driveway. So was Vanessa's Mercedes. I sat in my car for a full minute, hands gripping the steering wheel, debating whether to walk inside or just drive away. But I'd spent 2 years avoiding confrontation. 2 years being the understanding wife. I was done understanding. I unlocked the front door quietly. The living room was empty, wine glasses on the coffee table, Vanessa's expensive coat draped over our couch. Music played softly from upstairs. From our bedroom. I climbed the stairs, each step deliberate, my heels clicking on the hardwood. The bedroom door was open. They didn't even have the decency to close it. Blake was on the bed. Our bed. The one we'd picked out together when we first moved in, the one where he'd promised to love me forever. Vanessa was with him, her black hair loose around her shoulders, her hands on his chest. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't hear me enter. "Well," I said, my voice cutting through the music. "This explains why you've been too tired for me." They sprang apart. Blake grabbed the sheet, covering himself. Vanessa reached for her dress on the floor, completely unashamed. "Rachel." Blake's face went white. "I can explain." "Please don't." I leaned against the doorframe, surprised by how calm I felt. "I've heard your explanations. The fundraiser was a mistake. The late nights are work. The conferences are networking. I'm done with your lies, Blake. This isn't what it looks like," he tried. "It looks like you're having sex with your boss in our bed." I turned to Vanessa. "Did you enjoy the wine?" "That's a 2015 Bordeaux. I was saving it for our anniversary." Vanessa had the audacity to smile. "Rachel, let's be adults about this. Blake and I have been together for 3 years. This isn't some sordid affair. We're in love." The words hit harder than I expected. 3 years. Not 2 years since the fundraiser. 3 years. Almost from the moment he joined her practice. 3 years, I repeated. "Rachel, I'm sorry." Blake stood, pulling on his pants. "I never meant for this to happen. Vanessa and I, we connected on a level you and I never did. She understands my work, my ambitions. Your mother's expectations," I finished. "Yes, I'm sure she does." "Does Dorothy know?" Silence. "She knows," Vanessa said. "She approves." Of course she did. Dorothy had probably been hoping for this since our wedding day. "Get out," I said quietly. "Both of you. Get out of my house." "Your house?" Blake laughed, actually laughed. "Rachel, this is my house. My family's money bought it. You're the one who needs to leave." "Fine." I turned toward our closet, ready to pack a bag. "Wait." Blake grabbed my arm. "We need to talk about this properly. About the divorce." "There's nothing to discuss. You want a divorce, I'll give you one. It's not that simple." He glanced at Vanessa, who nodded encouragement. "We need to discuss assets, property division." "The prenup." "The prenup your mother insisted on?" I pulled my arm free. "The one that keeps all marital assets separate?" "That prenup?" "Exactly. So you understand that." "I understand that you get nothing from me, and I get nothing from you." I smiled for the first time since walking in. "That works perfectly." Vanessa stood, fully dressed now, her composure completely intact. "Rachel, Blake was never yours. He's been mine for 3 years. The marriage was just convenient cover while we built our professional partnership. Convenient cover, I echoed. You were safe, Blake added, and there was almost pity in his voice. You were the kind of wife my mother could tolerate until I was established enough to make my own choices. But Vanessa and we're building something together. A medical empire. She's making me a full partner, Rachel. We're opening 3 new offices next year. With your trust fund money, I guessed. With my money, he corrected. Money I can finally access now that I'm 32. The door downstairs opened. Footsteps on the stairs. Dorothy Brennan appeared in our bedroom doorway, taking in the scene with barely concealed satisfaction. Rachel, I'm glad you're here, she said. This conversation is long overdue. You knew, I said. You knew about this the whole time. Of course I knew. Dorothy moved into the room like she owned it. Which, technically, she did. Did you really think my son would stay with someone like you forever? You were a phase, Rachel. A rebellion against the life I'd planned for him. But Blake always comes back to what's right for the family. And Vanessa is what's right? Vanessa is brilliant, connected, sophisticated. She has the pedigree and the career that will elevate Blake's position in the medical community. Dorothy's eyes were cold. You were never going to be enough. The words should have destroyed me. 2 years ago, they would have. But standing there, with $18 million in my bank account and a freedom I'd earned entirely on my own, all I felt was relief. You're right, I said. I was never going to be enough for people who measure worth in trust funds and country club memberships. Sign the divorce papers, Blake. I'll be gone by morning. Good luck surviving without my money and connections, Blake said, his voice dripping with condescension. I'll manage. Vanessa's smile was sharp. You'll be back in your little sales job, living in some apartment, wondering what could have been. Meanwhile, Blake and I will be building our empire. I hope it makes you both very happy, I said, meaning it. I packed a single suitcase that night, leaving behind everything that reminded me of Blake Brennan. The designer clothes his mother had bought me. The jewelry from anniversaries. Even the wedding ring I'd worn for 6 years. I left them all on the dresser with a note, you can have everything. I already have what matters. I drove to a hotel, checked in, and slept better than I had in years. What none of them knew was that I'd been preparing for this moment for 18 months. I had copies of all our financial documents. My lawyer already had divorce papers ready. My bank accounts were separate, protected. And most importantly, I had proof that Vanessa Ashford's medical practice was built on fraud. 6 months before that night in our bedroom, I'd started investigating Vanessa. Not out of jealousy, out of survival instinct. I needed to know who I was really dealing with. What I found was worse than an affair. Ashford Medical Group was billing insurance companies for procedures that were never performed. Vanessa was prescribing unnecessary tests, recommending surgeries patients didn't need, all to inflate her revenue. And Blake, my husband, had been signing off on patient charts he'd never reviewed, accepting kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies, not medtech, thank God, and participating in insurance fraud. I'd documented everything. Copied files. Saved emails Blake thought he'd deleted. Recorded conversations. Not for revenge. For protection. Because I knew that when this marriage ended, Dorothy and Blake would try to destroy me. They'd tell everyone I was unstable, difficult, not good enough. I needed leverage to ensure they left me alone. What I didn't know was how far Vanessa's criminality actually went, or that within 48 hours of that bedroom confrontation, Blake would be lying in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. 2 days after I walked out of our townhouse, I was staying at the Holloway's guest house, finalizing paperwork for the Mercer deal. My lawyer, David Chin, had expedited the divorce filing. Everything was moving forward smoothly, too smoothly. Blake called 17 times that first day. I didn't answer. Vanessa left 3 voicemails, each one dripping with false concern about making this transition easier. Dorothy sent a text, "You're making a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life." I blocked all their numbers. On Sunday evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mrs. Brennan? This is Mercy General Hospital. Your husband Blake Brennan has been in a serious accident. You're listed as his emergency contact." My stomach dropped. What happened? He was in a car accident around 8 p.m. He's in critical condition. How soon can you get here? I should have said no. Should have told them to call his mother or Vanessa. But something in the nurse's voice made me grab my keys. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The hospital emergency room was chaos when I arrived. Nurses rushing between curtained areas, machines beeping, the smell of antiseptic mixing with anxiety. A different nurse led me to a private waiting room where Dorothy was already seated, her face pale, her perfect composure cracked. "Where have you been?" she demanded when she saw me. "He needed you and you abandoned him." "I left 2 days ago, Dorothy. After finding him in bed with Vanessa." She waved that away like it was insignificant. "That's over now. He needs his wife." "What happened?" "Car accident." Vanessa's voice came from the doorway. She walked in, a bandage on her forehead, her arm in a sling, but otherwise unharmed. "Blake was driving my car. We were coming back from dinner." "From celebrating," Dorothy corrected, her voice sharp. They were celebrating Blake's partnership. His trust fund money was transferred Friday. Everything was finally falling into place. I looked at Vanessa. "You were in the car?" "Yes." Blake was driving. We were on Route 9, and he just lost control. Hit the median at 70 miles per hour. She touched her bandaged forehead delicately. "I was lucky. Blake wasn't." A doctor entered, still wearing surgical scrubs. "Mrs. Brennan?" "Yes. I'm Dr. Morrison. Your husband is out of surgery, but his condition is critical. He has a shattered pelvis, significant internal bleeding, possible spinal damage. The next 48 hours will be crucial." "Can I see him?" "He's in the ICU. Immediate family only, and only briefly." Dorothy stood. "I'm his mother. I'll go." Actually, Dr. Morrison checked his chart. His wife is listed as his medical proxy. "Mrs. Brennan, you'll need to make decisions about his care if he can't." Vanessa's face darkened. "That's absurd. They're getting divorced." "The paperwork hasn't been filed yet," I said quietly. "Legally, I'm still his wife." I followed Dr. Morrison through sterile corridors to the ICU. Blake lay in the bed, tubes running from his arms, monitors beeping steadily, his face bruised and swollen. He looked smaller than I remembered. Vulnerable. Human. I pulled a chair beside his bed and sat, not touching him, just watching the rise and fall of his chest. "I should hate you," I whispered. You cheated on me for 3 years. You let your mother treat me like garbage. You chose her over me again and again. His eyes moved beneath closed lids, but he didn't wake. But I don't hate you, Blake. I just don't feel anything anymore. I stayed for 15 minutes, fulfilling the obligation of appearing like I cared. When I returned to the waiting room, Vanessa and Dorothy were huddled together, talking in low voices that stopped when they saw me. "How is he?" Dorothy asked. "Stable. Unconscious." "Good." Vanessa stood. "Dorothy and I need to discuss some things." The partnership papers Blake signed, his medical care decisions. "I'm his medical proxy," I interrupted. "Any decisions go through me." "For now," Vanessa said coldly. "But that will change very quickly." I spent that night in the hospital, not because I wanted to be there, but because something felt wrong. The way Vanessa watched Blake. The way she and Dorothy whispered together. The way neither of them seemed genuinely concerned about his recovery. Around midnight, I overheard Vanessa on her phone in the hallway. "No, we need to accelerate the timeline. The partnership papers are signed. If he dies, I get everything. The practice, the trust fund investment, all of it." My blood went cold. "Just make sure the lawyers have everything ready. Dorothy's on board. We just need to deal with Rachel." I pressed myself against the wall, hidden in a doorway, listening. She won't be a problem much longer. Once Blake's medical directive is updated, she'll have no legal standing. Then we can make the necessary decisions. Necessary decisions. What did that mean? I waited until Vanessa ended the call, watching her walk back toward the ICU with a satisfied smile on her face. Over the next 3 days, I maintained my vigil at Blake's bedside. Not out of love, but out of something I couldn't quite name. Maybe protection. Maybe just the need to bear witness to the destruction of everything we'd built together. Dorothy arrived every morning at exactly 8 a.m., dressed impeccably despite the circumstances. She'd sit on the opposite side of Blake's bed, not speaking to me, just watching her son with an expression I'd never seen before, genuine fear. "He looks so young," she said on the second day, her voice barely audible. "He's 32, I replied. "I know how old my son is." Her sharp tone returned. "I meant he looks vulnerable. Like when he was a boy. Did you love him even then? Or just what he represented?" She turned to look at me fully. "You don't understand what it means to build a legacy. To ensure your child has every advantage, every opportunity. I understand you pushed him so hard toward perfection that he forgot how to be happy. Happiness is a luxury for people with nothing to lose." Dorothy's eyes glittered with tears she refused to shed. "Blake has everything to lose." Vanessa visited less frequently. She had a practice to run, she explained. Patients who needed her. But I noticed she always came when Dorothy was present, never when I was alone with Blake. On the third day, Blake regained consciousness. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused, confused by the tubes and machines. "Blake," I said softly. "You're in the hospital. You were in an accident." His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I reached for the water cup, tilting the straw toward his lips. He took a small sip, wincing. "Vanessa," he whispered, "she's fine. Minor injuries. You took the worst of it." "Good." His eyes drifted closed again. "Can't lose her even here, semi-conscious and broken." He was thinking of her. I pulled my hand back from his and stood. I'll get the doctor. As I walked toward the nurse's station, I heard his voice again, barely audible but unmistakable. Never loved. Rachel was just safe. Vanessa's everything. I stopped walking. Turned back. But his eyes were closed again, his breathing deep and regular. Drugged. Unconscious. Speaking his truth without filters. I returned to his bedside and looked at the man I'd married 6 years ago. The man I'd built a life with, compromised for, tried so desperately to be enough for. You're right, I said quietly. I was safe. I was the backup plan while you waited for something better to come along. But Blake, while you were settling for safe, I was building something you'll never understand. I was becoming the person I was always meant to be. And I did it without you. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Dorothy appeared in the hallway, blocking my path. Home. You can't leave. He needs you. No, he doesn't. He needs Vanessa. He's made that very clear. Rachel, please. Dorothy's voice cracked, showing vulnerability for the first time. I know I haven't been kind to you. I know I've made terrible mistakes. But Blake is my son. If you leave now, if you abandon him like he abandoned me? I met her eyes. I stayed through 3 years of betrayal, Dorothy. I stayed through your constant criticism and his neglect. I stayed when I should have left long ago. But I'm done now. Blake will recover or he won't. Either way, my presence here changes nothing. What about the divorce? My lawyer will handle it. And his medical care? Transfer proxy to you or Vanessa. I don't care which. I moved past her toward the elevator, my heels clicking on the linoleum floor. Each step felt lighter than the last. Freedom was 20 feet away. Freedom was the elevator doors closing on this chapter of my life. I pressed the button and waited. Behind me, I heard Dorothy's voice, broken and desperate. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. But apologies mean nothing when they come too late. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Mrs. Winters, wait. I turned. A nurse was rushing toward me, her face pale, her eyes urgent. Nurse Patricia Martinez. I'd seen her around the ICU over the past 3 days, always kind, always professional. Please, Mrs. Winters. I need to show you something before you leave. I'm done here. It's about your husband and Dr. Ashford. She glanced down the hallway where Dorothy stood watching. About the accident. Mrs. Winters, I don't think it was an accident at all. Patricia led me to a small security office near the emergency room. The night guard, an older man named Frank, looked up when we entered. Frank, can you pull up the footage from Sunday night? The accident victims who came in around 8:30 p.m.? He nodded, typing on his keyboard. Multiple screens showed different angles of the hospital parking lots, entrances, corridors. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because something's been bothering me since that night. Patricia pulled up a chair. Dr. Ashford came in with minor injuries. She was calm, collected, almost rehearsed in how she described the accident. She insisted on being discharged immediately, said she had important calls to make. So I've been an emergency room nurse for 20 years. People who've just been in serious accidents aren't calm. They're shaking, crying, in shock. Dr. Ashford walked in like she'd stubbed her toe. Frank pulled up footage from the hospital parking lot. Here. This is from earlier that day, around 3 p.m. The screen showed Vanessa's silver Porsche pulling into a parking space. Vanessa got out, walked toward the building. Minutes later, a man approached the car. He looked around, then crouched down near the front wheel. "Who is that?" I leaned closer. "Detective Howard Mills," Patricia said. "He's Vanessa's ex-husband." My heart started racing. What was he doing? That's what bothered me. So I checked more footage. Frank switched to another camera angle, this one showing the underside of the car more clearly. Watch. The man Detective Mills had something in his hands. Tools. He was working underneath the vehicle for nearly 10 minutes. "Oh my God," I whispered. "He tampered with her car." "That's what I think," Patricia said. "But there's more." Frank pulled up footage from that evening, showing Blake and Vanessa leaving a restaurant. They were laughing, his arm around her waist. They got into the Porsche with Blake driving. Now watch this. Frank enhanced the audio, though it was scratchy and distant. Blake started the car. They pulled onto the road. Everything seemed normal for about 5 minutes. Then Blake's phone lit up on the dashboard. Vanessa leaned over, reading the screen. Her face changed completely from happy to furious. "Pull over." Her voice came through the audio faintly. "What?" "Pull over right now." "Vanessa, what's wrong?" "You were supposed to sign everything over first." Her voice was rising. "The full partnership, Blake. You were supposed to give me complete control before we access the trust fund." "I don't understand." "My lawyer just sent the real partnership agreement. You signed the decoy. You still have equity, you still have voting rights. You stupid, trusting fool." The car swerved. Blake was looking at his phone, distracted by whatever message had arrived. "Vanessa, what are you? You are always just a means to an end," she screamed. "The perfect respectable front for my practice while I built real wealth. You were supposed to sign over everything, then have an unfortunate accident, and I'd be the grieving partner who inherited it all. You planned this? You planned to." The car veered sharply. Blake overcorrected. The Porsche hit the median at 70 miles per hour, metal crushing, glass shattering. The footage ended. I sat in silence, processing what I'd just seen. Vanessa hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been planning murder. Using Blake for his trust fund money, his family connections, his respectability. Planning to kill him once she had everything she needed. "The brake lines were compromised," Patricia said quietly. "The police report says mechanical failure. But I think Detective Mills sabotaged the car. I think Vanessa was planning something worse than just leaving Blake. She was planning to kill him and make it look like an accident." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Dr. Ashford has been calling hospital administrators every day, trying to get you banned from visiting. She's been forging Blake's medical directives, saying only she can make decisions about his care. She wants you gone, Mrs. Winters. And I'm afraid of what she'll do once you leave." I looked at the frozen image on the screen. Vanessa's face, twisted with rage, screaming at Blake moments before the crash that she's waiting for him to die. I realized. If he dies, she gets the partnership, the trust fund investment, everything. But if he lives and tells people what she said, she's destroyed, Patricia finished. Which means she has every reason to want him dead. And as his medical proxy, you're the only thing standing between Blake and whatever Vanessa has planned next. I should have walked away. Blake deserved nothing from me. He'd betrayed me, chosen her, let his mother destroy my confidence for years. But this wasn't about Blake anymore. This was about justice. What do you need me to do? I asked. I stood in that security office, watching the frozen frame of Vanessa's rage-filled face, and made my decision. Copy all of this footage, I said to Frank. Everything from that afternoon through the crash. I need it on a flash drive. Mrs. Winters, if this gets out it won't. I'll protect you both. I turned to Patricia. Who else knows about this? Just us. I wanted to tell someone in authority, but Dr. Ashford has connections everywhere. The police chief plays golf with her father. Half the hospital board has invested in her practice, then we go over their heads. I pulled out my phone and called David Chin, my lawyer. He answered on the second ring despite it being nearly midnight. Rachel? What's wrong? I need you to contact the state medical board, the FBI fraud division, and the district attorney's office. Tonight. What's happened? I have evidence of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. How fast can you move? Give me 4 hours. My next call was to Dr. James Holloway. James, I need your help. It's time to go public about Holloway Biosystems. About my role in the company. About everything. Rachel, are you sure? Once this information is out, nobody can touch me. Blake's family, Vanessa, none of them. I need the world to know exactly who I am before this gets worse. Then let's do it. I'll contact our PR team immediately. I hung up and turned back to Patricia. I'm going back to Blake's room. I need you to make sure no one, not Dorothy, not Vanessa, not anyone makes medical decisions without my explicit approval. Can you do that? Absolutely. And Patricia? I met her eyes. Thank you. You didn't have to tell me any of this. Yes, I did. She squeezed my hand. I've watched too many people get away with terrible things because nobody was brave enough to stop them. Not this time. I walked back to the ICU, my mind racing with strategy. Blake was still unconscious, monitors beeping their steady rhythm. I pulled the chair close to his bed and sat, not touching him, just keeping watch. Dorothy appeared in the doorway an hour later. I thought you'd left. I changed my mind. She entered slowly, studying my face. Why? Because your son deserves to know the truth about the woman he chose over me. And because Vanessa Ashford deserves to face consequences for what she's done. What are you talking about? I pulled up my phone and showed her the security footage. Vanessa's ex-husband tampering with the car, the argument before the crash, Vanessa's screaming confession. Dorothy's face went white. She sank into a chair, one hand pressed to her mouth. She was going to kill him, Dorothy whispered. She was going to take everything and kill my son. Yes, but why show me this? Why not just walk away and let it happen? After everything I've done to you, because I'm not like you, Dorothy. I put my phone away. I don't measure people's worth by their bank accounts or social connections. Blake may have betrayed me, but he doesn't deserve to die for trusting the wrong person. Tears streamed down Dorothy's face, the first genuine emotion I'd ever seen from her. I pushed him toward her. I told him you weren't good enough. I did this. Yes, you did. But feeling guilty won't fix it. Helping me stop Vanessa will. Morning came with chaos. David Chin arrived at 6 a.m. with 2 FBI agents and a representative from the state medical board. They'd spent the night building a case against Vanessa based on the evidence I'd provided. By 8 a.m., they were ready to move. Vanessa arrived at the hospital at her usual time, dressed in an expensive suit, her confident stride faltering only when she saw the federal agents standing outside Blake's room. What's going on? She looked at me. Rachel, what did you do? I protected my husband. Something you were planning to stop doing permanently. I don't know what you're talking about. Detective Howard Mills has been very cooperative, one of the FBI agents said. He's provided detailed testimony about the arrangement you made. The car tampering, the insurance fraud at your practice, the plan to kill Blake Brennan once you had access to his trust fund. Vanessa's mask cracked. That's ridiculous. Howard is my ex-husband. He's trying to frame me because of our divorce. We have security footage, I interrupted. Of him sabotaging your car. Of you and Blake arguing right before the crash. Of you admitting you planned to have him killed. You're lying. I held up my phone, playing the enhanced audio. Her voice filled the hallway. You were always just a means to an end. You were supposed to sign over everything, then have an unfortunate accident, and I'd be the grieving partner who inherited it all. Hospital staff had gathered in the corridor. Doctors, nurses, patients. All watching as Dr. Vanessa Ashford's perfect facade shattered. That's taken out of context, she tried desperately. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. The brake lines on your Porsche were compromised, the FBI agent continued. Your ex-husband detailed exactly how and when he sabotaged the vehicle at your request. Additionally, we've been investigating your practice for the past 6 hours. The insurance fraud, the unnecessary procedures, the kickbacks. Dr. Ashford, you're under arrest. They read her rights as they handcuffed her. Vanessa's eyes found mine, filled with pure hatred. You vindictive witch. You're doing this because you're jealous. Because Blake chose me over you. No, Vanessa. I'm doing this because you tried to murder someone. And because you would have done it again to someone else. As they led her away, Dorothy stood beside me, watching the woman she'd championed being taken into custody. I'm sorry, Dorothy said quietly. For all of it. For treating you like you weren't good enough. For pushing Blake toward her. For being blind to who you really are. Who I really am. Dorothy pulled out her phone, showing me a news alert that had just posted. CEO of Holloway Biosystems closes $47 million deal with Mercer Pharmaceuticals. My photo was front and center. The article detailed my 18-month journey building the company, my 40% stake, the revolutionary drug delivery system we'd developed. $18 million, Dorothy read aloud. Rachel Winters, 34, built her company without family money or connections, proving that innovation and dedication can outweigh privilege. She looked up at me. You were a millionaire this whole time. While I was calling you a failure, while Blake was cheating on you, you were building something extraordinary. Yes, why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? Or would you have found a way to diminish it, just like you diminished everything else I accomplished? Dorothy had no answer for that. Blake stirred in his bed. His eyes opened, focusing slowly on the room. What's happening? Where's Vanessa? I moved to his bedside. Blake, there's a lot you need to know. Over the next hour, I told Blake everything. The security footage, Vanessa's plan, the attempted murder, the fraud at her practice. He listened in silence, his face cycling through disbelief, horror, and finally, devastation. She was using me, he whispered. The whole time. 3 years. It was all a con, I finished. You were the respectable face she needed while building her scheme. The family money was just a bonus. Rachel, I'm so sorry. For everything. For choosing her, for letting my mother treat you that way, for being too blind to see what I had. I know you are. Can you forgive me? I pulled divorce papers from my bag and set them on his bedside table. I can let go of the anger. But forgiveness means trusting you again, and I won't do that. Sign these, Blake. Let me go. What if I don't want to? What if I want to try again, do things right this time? Then you'd still be missing the point. I stood. I don't need you anymore. I don't need your family's approval or your mother's acceptance. While you were building your career on someone else's foundation, I built mine from nothing. While you were choosing wealth over integrity, I was becoming exactly what your mother said I'd never be: successful. The pharmaceutical company is part of my past. Holloway Biosystems is my present. I'm a CEO, Blake. I closed an $18 million deal while you were planning your affair. I'm speaking at medical conferences you won't be invited to anymore. I built an empire, and I did it without a single dollar from your trust fund. Dorothy spoke from the doorway. She's remarkable, Blake. Everything I wanted you to be, she became. While we were tearing her down, she was rising above us. Blake signed the papers with a shaking hand. I hope you find someone who deserves you, Rachel. I never did. 6 months later, Vanessa Ashford was convicted of attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy. 15 years in prison. Blake lost his medical license permanently, convicted as an accessory to fraud. He lives with his mother now, working as a medical consultant, a shadow of the man he thought he'd become. As for me, the Mercer deal went through. My $18 million became the foundation for expanding Holloway Biosystems into 5 new markets. I'm on the cover of 3 industry magazines this quarter. And yes, I'm dating someone, Andrew Holloway, James's son, a researcher who sees my worth without needing evidence of my bank account. But the real victory isn't the money or the success. It's the peace I feel every morning when I wake up in my own apartment, answering to nobody but myself. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, thank you. Your time matters, and I hope my story gave you something valuable. Here's what I learned, and what I hope you take with you. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself when nobody's watching. I could have stayed, could have kept accepting Blake's betrayal and Dorothy's contempt. But I chose myself. I built something beautiful in secret, and when the time came to reveal it, nobody could take it away from me. Sometimes justice matters more than revenge. I didn't expose Vanessa because I wanted to hurt her. I did it because she would have hurt someone else if I'd stayed silent. There's power in protecting others, even when they don't deserve your protection. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I forgave Blake, not for his sake but for mine. Carrying that anger was exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't mean trusting him again. It means I'm free from the poison of what he did. The people who underestimate you give you the greatest gift, they won't see you coming. Dorothy and Blake thought I was safe, boring, beneath them. While they weren't looking, I became someone they'll never be, genuinely successful, built on my own merit, answerable only to my own conscience. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself after someone tried to break you, I want to hear from you. Drop one word in the comments that describes your journey. Mine is liberated. Hit that subscribe button if you believe that sometimes the best endings look nothing like what you planned. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than the people who hurt them. And remember, you're not defined by who left you. You're defined by who you became after they were gone. I walked away from my husband's hospital bed for the last time. Not as his victim, not as his wife, but as Rachel Winters, CEO, survivor, and finally, completely free. Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, this is Revenge with Alice, reminding you that your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth.